You want to introduce yourself a little bit?
My name is Hillary Keith, and I'm a social worker in Knox County Schools. Do you want to know about my background? Should I tell them about my background?
That'd be great.
I graduated in 1989 with a master's in social work and got my LCSW probably about 93, 94. I worked at Children's Hospital right out of placement. Placement's a good second year placement's a good place to get a job sometimes. Was hired for Children's Hospital and worked there for about 8 years in different capacities, but did intensive care in the nursery and long chronic clinics like juvenile diabetes and that kind of thing. I left that and I went to work for home health agencies in a home health agency in Anderson County, just as like on call, and that was a United Way funded agency. This is when I was raising kids, so my hours kept changing as far as when I would work. But then I started working with the early intervention program, statewide early intervention program. Are you guys aware of that? It's for babies birth to 3 that have some type of diagnosis, or they test out, the parent's concerned about their speech, they test out that they are a certain percentage delayed, and they get services from the state, or they're eligible for that. In special ed in schools, it's called IEP. In young children, it's called IFSP, Individual Family Service Plan. But anyway, I did that for about 5 or 6 years, and through that, I had to come back and take Dr. Duper's class because I was working for a school and I was hired in a supervisory position that required that I have a school certification. And so that was the only thing I was missing. I'd already worked in that school setting, but I needed that class. So, are you guys taking the class, school social work class?
I'm planning on next semester, yes.
I would. I mean, as many with this job market, as many certifications that you can get, the better. So I wish I'd have done it then.
Yeah.
And so I came to the state underwent a reorganization and change, and through that I came to the school system. And I was hired on as somewhat of the special ed school social worker, because I have all the non-traditional schools except for Richard J. Oakley. I don't have that school, and that's because I felt like they needed a man in that position, because you're going out to make home visits and sometimes you can't get people to go with you, and sometimes the students you're going out to make a home visit may be gang involved or whatever, so it wasn't really the best situation. But what Dr. Duper asked me to talk about today was, what are we doing? What are some supplemental things that we're doing in the school system to support our at-risk or students who may be struggling with discipline, graduation, or other things? And so I thought I would talk about some things that other social workers are doing first, and then I was going to talk about what I do at my schools. My schools are Ridgedale, which it's listed as Ridgedale Alternative, but I don't like to say that. I like to say Ridgedale School because it's a school. And I've got that school, which, are you guys familiar with the schools in Knox County as far as like how what populations they serve? The special schools?
Not
Okay. Ridgedale is like the biggest hodgepodge school in the county. It's got, the downstairs program is long-term suspended middle schoolers. So kids who've been zero tolerance out of school as an alternative placement. The upstairs students, we have varying degrees of special ed programs upstairs, and we have a diagnostic program for elementary, middle, and high. The diagnostic program is where they put children, if they just can't, if they don't know, if they have a disability, so they go into the diagnostic program, they have an evaluation. At the end of that, they determine, okay, what services does this child need? Where do they need to go? So that school has a lot of, well, all the schools that I serve are high needs schools, and they all are, except for I have the L&N STEM Academy, which doesn't fit the category, but all of my schools are probably about 80 to 85% free reduced lunch. So
is Miss Loy still the principal at Ridge? Is it Ridge?
no, she's Northwest Middle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Diana Gossett.
Okay.
So I'm going to talk about some of the things that. Is there a specific age wanna focus
Well,
on?
we're trying to move more towards adolescence,
Okay.
middle, high school age.
Okay.
More.
Well, we've got a lot of programs throughout our department that we work with those students. At Northwest, the social worker there, he has he selected a group of kids just by being at risk for their grades, truancy, and other things. And he has, after school, one day a week, he's got Iron Rangers, and they pump iron, and they do are you familiar with life skills training? They do the life skills.
Bogdan's program.
Mhm.
It's great.
Yeah, he does the life skills training, and then they pump iron, and then he buys them a T-shirt.
And who's this? The
social worker.
The social worker there.
The social worker
Great.
at Northwest, yeah.
Very good.
Cool. Yeah.
And this is the thing, teachers get a little bit of money, they get money and access to money. Social workers don't get any money. We don't get any money for students, for incentives, or for anything. So it's one thing that we really want to advocate for ourselves as a department, is because we can't, my husband refers it to me giving my salary back. Powell Middle has the social worker there uses Y-Try. Are you guys familiar with Y-Try? Are you familiar with Y-Try? It's a research-based program that a social worker, an LCSW, came up with, and it has lessons. It's a curriculum on self-esteem and.
Who was it? Someone local, or do you know where?
No, you can Google it.
Yeah. Why try?
Why try?
Huh, interesting.
Yeah. And I've got the curriculum stuff at Ridgedale too. There's an elementary curriculum, and then there's a middle school curriculum. And she meets with the same thing. She goes through the process of taking referrals from teachers and also just kids that are on her radar, maybe behaviorally or otherwise. And she does a group, meets with them an hour a week, and then at the end of the school year, they go and do a community service project. So it's very rewarding for those students and for her too. Carter Middle, the social worker there, he works with, he does a girls group, and this is a girls group who are struggling with lots of different issues, behavior, truancy, things going on at home. And he takes those girls, he does groups with them, and then at the end of the session, I think he does rotate 6 weeks, that he takes them over because the Carter High School is close by. They go over and they get makeovers from the cosmetology students that are doing cosmetology, and he also has got a sponsor to do outfits, that he takes sizes and outfits for the girls, and they do like a fashion show. So that's a really good thing he's doing over there. And then one of our social workers, she does a school-wide readers club, and she handpicks the leaders to be those students that they're struggling and usually don't feel like leaders, the ones that are having behavioral issues or different things going on. And that's a year-long program that she does too. And then we've got one social worker at Dogwood, and she does a breakfast. I think she said twice a year, or maybe 3 times a year. And she invites all the parents. They do the breakfast. This does come out of their school budget. And then she just reviews attendance policies, behavior policies, reminds parents that they have 10 parent notes per school year to excuse their child, and that kind of thing. The schools that I have, I pull on a lot of different resources. I use, for my girls, I usually get a graduate student, first year graduate student, and I always ask for a male, because I have that student lead the boys groups for the suspended kids, and I lead the girls groups. And the purpose of our group is to help them get some strategies or some just learn some new things so that they don't come back to us, because we have had a few students who we see them in 6th grade, we see them in 7th grade, we see them in 8th grade, and I know from having Richard Yoakley last year, that kind of continues on. So what we try to do is if a student has needs that are just really red flags, then we'll meet with that student individually once a week, as well as groups. But we pull from life skills. Liz Claiborne has a dating, Love is Not Abuse curriculum for dating violence. I do that with the middle school girls. The Jason Foundation, are you guys familiar? Have y'all talked to any about the Jason Foundation? You're familiar with it? Jason Foundation? The Jason Foundation is a foundation out of Nashville that is a suicide prevention curriculum, and they send you updates every year for their curriculum. It's a great program, and that is a more intensive program that I do with the whole middle school population at Ridgedale, and I do it with the upstairs students as well as the downstairs students. It's just making them aware and giving them the information of what to do if they have a friend who is showing some of the signs, giving them the signs and that kind of thing. At Kelly Volunteer Academy, which is another one of my schools, we have a lot of teen parents. So when I started, this is my first year to have that school, my undergraduate degree is in early childhood development. So I said, what about a parenting class for a credit? Because these students, the students who go, are y'all familiar with Kelly Volunteer Academy and the students that go there, the mall school? Mm-hmm. That school is for kids who are at risk to not graduate. They have to be a junior, and the principal likes for them to have around 11 credits coming in, which is significantly behind to graduate. But that is an individualized program so that they can come in and work on their credits at their pace, do some credit recovery. There is a teacher in each classroom, a teacher for each subject who is a resource teacher, but because everybody's on different levels, they don't get up and teach lessons. A lot of it's computer-based, and the teacher is a resource. But so I'm teaching a parenting class with those teen parents that already have their child or are pregnant expecting. And that has been going great. Sometimes there's a morning block at KVA, and then there's an afternoon block. You don't go all day, you come for 4 hours. Unless you work it out with the principal that you want to get finished, so you're going to stay later or whatever. And this is their free time. This is the in-between time. And so they have just, voluntarily decided to come to this class because it's really not a time that anybody else is in school. So, and I've had parents bring their children to class, which really is good too, because we can practice on some of the things that I go over. And I go over, in that class, I go over infant mental health, and we work on just development in the different areas of development: gross motor, fine motor, cognitive, and that kind of thing. Social, emotional, and we have a lady from Birth to Kindergarten program, which is another Knox County Schools program, and she comes and talks about, she's going to come and talk about nutrition. She's already came and talked about shaken baby syndrome and how that happens and what can happen if you shake your baby. So that's been exciting for me. It's been challenging, but very exciting. And the other part of our role as far as what we do, that's the overview of the programs that I'm aware of. I'm sure I don't talk to every social worker. There's 25 of us full-time, and there's 87 schools in Knox County, so that tells you how we're spread thin, and 59,000 students. So when you think of 25 people to meet the needs of...
Is that a real decrease as time's gone on? I mean, are you at a lower number than in the past, or how does that compare?
I don't believe we have gotten replacements for every position that we've had since I came on. I've been with the school system for 5 years. But, every principal you talk to says, I want a full-time social worker. I want a full-time social worker. Ridgedale and KAEC and some of the other schools could take 2 full-time social workers. But another thing what I do is I try to look at each school that I'm at and see where the needs are and come up with something to address those needs. So, like at Ridgedale, we have a lot of students upstairs who are mentally or physically handicapped, and they come to school till they're 22. So there have been situations where there's a child with fragile legs, got really upset, started fighting his mom. The police were called. He was taken to Lakeshore. She was not allowed to see him, and he's pretty much a nonverbal, 20-year-old, and she wasn't. I mean, it was just heart-wrenching for her to go through that. So I had a sponsor through K-Town Youth Empowerment last year, and an attorney volunteered his time and came and talked to them about setting up conservatorships. So, and that's something that we opened up to several schools for parents in the same boat. So that type of thing, you know, that's another thing, looking at families and not just, you know, the student for where the student is right then, but also, you know, helping families to plan ahead a little bit and about what they're might be facing down the road. Resources is a big part of our job too. We hook up with a lot of resources. We have parents that'll come in and say, you know, I did get housing, but I don't have any furniture, so we'll hook them up with resources in town for furniture, Angelic Ministries. At Ridgedale, I have a church that sponsors our school for Thanksgiving baskets, so they provide about 26 or 7 customized Thanksgiving baskets for our students' families, which is very nice. And we hand out the CARM Thanksgiving basket applications as well to schools that don't have a specific sponsor. I do Angel Tree I'm doing it for 4 out of my 5 schools this year. I'm doing Angel Tree, which is a pain, but it is a very good program, and it's hard to get sometimes people to go pick up the stuff and haul it back to the school. Rack Room Shoes. Everybody buy your shoes at Rack Room Shoes, because Rack Room Shoes outfits so many students with shoes. I have 3 of my schools on the Rack Room Shoes That Fit program, and last year I had over $2,000 worth of available funds for that to buy shoes for kids who are showing up. And you'd be amazed, kids who are coming to school in horrible shoes and their behavior problems, when they get new shoes, you see a change in behavior a lot of times, even if it's short-lived. We appreciate it. So, for those students that are parents, I make referrals for those students to Diaper Love. Diaper Love is a program where you can get free diapers. WIC, I have the applications for Families First, so sit down and go through that with them if they're 18. We have a lot of students who need help with referrals about emancipation at the mall school. A lot of situations where they've turned 18, or when they turn 18, their parents say, you need to leave, you're 18, I don't have to be responsible for you anymore. That happened twice in 1 week, a couple weeks ago, that the kids came to me and said, oh, Mom, I really don't have anywhere to go, I'm just staying with my boyfriend. Because they've been kicked out because they're 18, which is kind of hard to fathom, but especially for you guys. I bet none of you guys were kicked out at 18, were you? No, you wouldn't be here, probably, right? There's a lot of obstacles if you're not even out of high school and you don't have a place to live. One of my schools, which this is the best thing about my job, has a Families in Need fund. And that fund is a fund that I can get my hands on, and when a parent comes in and says, well, I'm probably going to lose my housing because I can't pay my KUB bill, I've got the shut-off notice, that we can pay the outstanding balance on their KUB bill. Or we can buy a baby bed if that child is sleeping in a pack and play and they're 2.5, 3 years old. We've bought beds, we paid bills, we paid rent, we've bought tires, we've bought gas, lots of gas cards, because for the governor's pre-K program, there's no transportation for the special ed children. There's always transportation at any age, but so that's really nice to have that fund.
Very good. Wow, that's very cool to hear about.
Yeah.
So are any of you in the school settings for placement?
I am.
I thought you looked familiar. Have I seen you?
I'm not sure.
Whose student are you?
I'm with Catholic Charities. I work
okay.
with Jessica Conte and Allison Jones.
Okay, I know
My
Allison.
supervisor is Stacy Robertson. But I'm in St. Mary's and Knoxville Catholic High School mostly.
Okay.
Other schools I go to. So.
I have a question about how do you get these programs going? I mean, there's a need, and then as a social worker, so can you help us with this problem that we've identified at the school? How do you start implementing?
The social workers just see the need and say, okay, you get online and you start researching for curriculum and research-based.
And there's a lot of support from the principals, from the
Oh yeah, they
teachers,
love it. They love it. They love it. Yeah, they're really excited about it when you come up with something. So money is the big issue for it, because the things I've tried to do. I wrote a grant. I did a grant application for the Peyton Manning Foundation, and of course I didn't get it. But what I wanted to do at Ridgedale was have sessions year-round, parent sessions on alcohol and drug prevention, dealing with behaviors in middle school, hit all those things that we see in our students there, and have guest speakers come in from the community. And the grant was going to pay for a small gift for the speaker, but gas cards and money for food, because all of my schools are non-traditional schools and they serve the entire county. And it is very difficult if you have $5 in your pocket and you live in South Knoxville to get to Ridgedale School and back and not have gas for your doctor's appointment or whatever for tomorrow. So that's a biggie, is providing, if we could help with gas. And if you feed people, they come typically. So we have a big Thanksgiving dinner at Ridgedale every year, and all the families come, and the staff cooks, and we get some food donated. So, any questions?
What questions you guys have?
Other than grant writing, have you found any other ways to fundraise or raise money, or any other sources of money?
Well, churches,
Okay.
like with KVA, I happen to be on the mission committee of my church, and I brought them up as a mission project because the students at KVA, unless they're special ed, they don't have transportation.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of our students ride the bus, and we have there's one church or a little grant that she gets a certain amount of bus passes, but we have to be so careful with them. We can't give them out because there's a certain amount for the whole year. So, and I had a student who, his mom was barely keeping the lights on. She's working a job and going to school herself, and they're about to have their car repossessed, and the principal said, because he was asking all the time for bus passes every day, and she said, call his mom and see if he really needs these bus passes. And she told me that whole story, and I presented that story to my mission committee, and so they gave us $300, so we bought a bunch of bus passes. We get the student rate, but a lot of those students are, they don't have a bus, they may not have 75 cents to get there, or if they have 75 cents to get there one way, they don't have 75 cents to get home. So.
I have a question. As the programs that you facilitate and run become more effective, do you find more people wanting to donate money to those programs to keep them running? So they're like, funding could, run dry.
I'm hoping that's what's going to happen. I mean, if I can come back to the mission committee and say, this student that we helped with bus pass graduated, this student graduated, I'm hoping that will be a long-term thing. But it's just so hard right now with the economy the way it is. I mean, it's hard getting, I've had one of our big Thanksgiving suppliers for KAEC, which is Knoxville Adaptive Education Center. Y'all familiar with that? It's for students who have an educational classification as emotionally disturbed. It's not all students who have that ED certification go there, but the students who do the best in a smaller environment go there.
Mm-hmm.
The Cedar Springs Presbyterian Church used to give us 40 Thanksgiving baskets when I first started. It's down to 20. So because there's a need so much around the community that, I mean, right now I see a big difference from when I came on 5 years ago and now, as far as what's available resource-wise.
This is kind of building on Jasmine's question, but it sounds like you guys have like a lot of interesting, like different programs you're doing, like the Iron Warriors type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you do any sort of like success indicators or graduation rates? Like, do you track it? Do the individual social workers track?
We do.
Success?
We track. What we do is we track like attendance, impact on attendance.
Oh, cool.
Okay, like
Yeah.
last year compared to this year with their involvement in the program.
Yeah.
Behavior referrals. We look at that.
Okay.
So yeah.
Neat. Yeah, I was wondering
Yeah,
if you.
and we at Ridgedale, I wasn't there before. I mean, when I started there, I started doing groups, but I keep track of a log of students who return to us and
Sure.
students who don't. And we have a certain amount of students who they will do something within 2 weeks of going back to school because they felt better at Ridgedale. It's a smaller environment, it's more structured, they were more successful. And that's hard because you know what's going on with those students, but at the same time, you don't want to hug them when they get there. They did something bad to get there. So yeah, it would be great if we had alternative settings and kids didn't have to act up to get there.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. Different
That
options.
would be great.
Mhm.
Yeah, but that's not where we are right now. So.
Right. Cool. Thank you.
So, if I understand that correctly, then some student could fluctuate repeatedly from the alternative school to their kind of home school repeatedly throughout the year.
Well, no. I mean, they can come to Ridgedale. They can come back to Ridgedale once, and then I think it's usually the disciplinary committee that decides, okay, you like it at Ridgedale, so you can have your placement at Yoakley. Yoakley has 3 middle school classrooms, and the rest high school. Ridgedale has 5 middle school regular ed classrooms and 1 special ed classroom. So, but typically if we say, you know what, if you mess up again, you're probably not coming here, you're probably going to go to Yoakley, so you behave, I don't want to see you back, and that kind of thing. But a lot of the times, those students say, I love it here, I'm doing better here, because they get more help. They're smaller classrooms. Until the end of the year, and then we're busting at the seams, because everybody's had it with behaviors, and they're like, you're going to Ridgedale.
And some kids are just not gonna make it without that smaller, individualized education, and so they don't make it.
And they're
because
not,
they
they're not certified as special ed, so
Yeah,
they don't
yeah,
get,
they fall between the cracks.
And that's when, another part of our job is to work with the parent and say, you need to advocate for your child may not, but you may need some support, and you need to come in and talk to the principal about that, and if we see that, we try to do that and empower the parent, and sometimes, we'll even say, we'll be in the meeting with you and give our observations as far as what we've seen as the student needing that.
Will that sometimes result
Yeah.
in some extra
Yeah.
help, even though
Oh,
they're
yeah.
not special ed? That was always a
There's
very-
tiers, are you aware
Oh,
of
in
how
terms
you?
of where the alternative
No,
No.
in every school.
in every school, okay.
In the elementary schools, I learned all about this last year because I had Sunnyview Primary. Before you get to the point of evaluation, you do an S team, and then there are tiers of intervention on reading and math or whatever. And if scores don't come up a certain percentage, then they go to the next tier. Then you have an M team, then you may have an IPD. So it's not just, this kid's struggling, let's put him in special ed. There's a
Right.
set process of how that happens.
But a kid who's struggling and doesn't meet the eligibility for special ed criteria, what can be provided for that child that's on the
Well, I mean, in my
grade?
own personal experience, my son had ADHD, and well, he still does. He's just in the military now. He's got all that structure that he was needing. I went to the school when he came off. He said to me, as he went into high school, after about a few weeks in high school, he said, "I'm sick of how the medication makes me feel. I don't want to take it anymore." And I said, "Okay." So what we did is we said we need to, plan on if you might need some extra support for that. So Halls High School was very accepting of that and receptive when I went in and said I'd like to look at a 504 plan for him. So, and that's
Mm-hmm.
basically, but see, a lot of it is parents just aren't aware.
Mm-hmm.
It's on the website that you've got to know where to look, and
Mhm.
you've got to be able to have access to a computer to find it, and all those other things that might be challenging.
So helping parents to understand what they can
Yeah,
do to advocate for their child.
helping them become the
Yeah,
advocate.
advocate.
What plan did you say?
A 504.
Okay. Yeah.
What does that mean?
It's like your child may have a diagnosis or a certain thing going on with them that they're going to need some extra supports or accommodations, but they don't need a full-blown IEP, an individual education plan. they may just need a smaller, or it may just be with math that they're needing some extra support in, or they may need a little bit more testing time to take their test, or they may need to be in a situation where there's no distractions to take the test.
You also mentioned the S team and the M team. I'm not familiar with that either.
Well, the S team is like for any disciplinary thing, long-term disciplinary, there has to be an S team done. I mean, when you look at, is there anything that we need to respond to other than, a disciplinary action? So we'll look at, okay, are there things going on at home? There's a parent interview part of that. There's all kinds of things that you look at to consider. What could be going on that's impacting this child's behavior or what this child did.
Who's part of that S team?
Well, I've been doing a lot of S teams at KDA because anytime a girl comes in that is expecting, then you have to arrange for homebound services, and that's one of the homebound would be one of the things you would have to do an S team for. But usually it's the social worker, the counselor, the school nurse if it's a medical issue, the principal, a regular ed teacher, and if the child has had any type of supportive services, whoever that supplemental person might be. So,
And the parent?
there's a whole parent, in the S team packet, there's a whole parent interview thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
And that's across the state or in Knox County?
I don't
or,
know if it's across
but
the
it's
state.
Knox County.
Yeah, it's Knox
within
County.
Knox County.
Yeah. Now there's certain things like if they're looking at, if it's a disciplinary thing, they will probably, that parent part will be probably handled on a phone call, an interview, parent type interview, not paper sent home type thing. And then the parent is involved when they have the planning meeting or whatever afterwards. So,
And an M team is the,
well,
for,
I'm not in a regular ed setting, so I
Yeah.
can't say I'm not real familiar with the
Yeah.
ATMTs because we do S teams
Yeah.
at Ridgedale. All my schools are alternative placement, so
Well, do you know what the S means? Or what that is that? So it's just kind of one of those abbreviations that's
Yeah.
always used.
S team.
Yeah. Hadn't heard.
well,
I don't know do you know what it stands for?
Supervisory
supervisory team?
team, and then the M team is a monitoring team, and
Monitoring.
it's you have an M team if you have a kid in any like alternative or no, M team is for kids not in any like CDC classes, and you'd have an S team at like a regular Knox County school if they are in CDC classes. So you would never have an M team on a kid that's like mentally handicapped.
Well, you don't have S teams on kids that are receiving special ed services that have an IEP.
Right.
You just have an IEP meeting or a professional review.
Right.
Yeah. And the M team is more for regular ed students who
Mhm.
are just like behind in one area or something and they might
If
need
they're
some
like
extra
truant
support
or something.
Yeah. So, and sometimes it is very, very hard to get together at the big hospitals because getting everybody, usually it's a social worker running around. When can you meet for an S team? When can you meet for an S? So, and it's,
I remember that, yeah.
it's
Yeah.
hard to get
Yeah.
everybody on that. And what Knox County has tried to do is get our schedules in line with the school psychologists. So
Mm.
we'll be there the same day. So
Right.
if there's a manifestation determination, is when a special ed student either has a disciplinary action or truancy has become an issue, you look at is the behavior or is whatever's going on, is it related to their disability or can it be ruled out or is it absolutely not related? And that's a team meeting too.
And that has to do with whether you can suspend a child.
Send a child to,
Yeah, send a child,
Send a
yeah.
child to an alternative placement
Yeah,
or,
or suspend.
yeah. You can't just suspend and send a special ed student home.
Right,
For
right.
more than 10 days is the max per year.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
if
there's
it's gonna
some-
be a long-term suspension, they have to be offered a placement.
Once you have a special ed label, there's a lot of federal laws that protect you from, there's a lot of steps that have to occur before you can take the disciplinary action. Not true for regular ed, but there's protections around it. What do you guys, any other questions? That was very, very interesting, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Glad to be here.
Appreciate your coming in and, let me know
If I get a ticket.
if you have a ticket.
Oh, yeah.
Parked illegally.
You
See
parked
what, if UT is.
That's how we roll.